Welcome back to my workshop. Now today I want to talk about air quality in the workshop. Now obviously as makers we make lots of mess and lots of dust, but this applies to everybody. It doesn't matter what environment you're in. If there's any sort of pollutants in the air, we want to know what they are. We want to know what they're doing to us. So before you skip through to the end of this video, it might be worth taking a look, and I'll try and demystify some of the air quality issues we have in the workshop. Now to do this, what I've done is I've managed to get myself in this little box here is an air quality meter. Now this was kindly bought for me for Christmas, and I haven't got it out of the box yet, and it's the end of January. So what I'm going to do, get this out of the box, power it up, and then show you what we're reading, and then I'll explain what each part is. Okay, I'll make it as quick as possible, and then hopefully I'll do some quick tests at the end. Right, let's get this out of the box. Okay, so this was purchased from Amazon, and it's actually a Kali Stug, I think that's the brand name, and it's marketed as a 2.8 inch digital PM 2.5 air quality detector. Okay, and it cost about £50. Okay, but as I say, I got this for Christmas. It doesn't come in any fancy packaging. It's literally just this protective foam, and this is what we get inside. Okay, so it's basically the detector. Then we get a little USB, is it USB-C, I believe, and a not very big instruction book. Okay, that's all you get. So let's get this out of the packet and then power it up and see what happens. Okay, yeah, that's very nice. Nice this. It's just USB to USB-C, so we need to find an adapter quickly. Okay, I quickly found myself just a generic USB adapter. I'm going to plug that in, plug in the USB. Okay, and on the side, here we are. Okay, so we've got a push button here, and we've got the USB connector here. Now that's the only controls you've got on this. Okay, there's no fancy smancy buttons anywhere. So let's power this up and see what we display. Oh, and immediately it's come to life. So this is now powered up via the USB. If we disconnect it, it goes off straight away. So it doesn't appear to be any battery backup. So you'd need a permanent supply. Okay, right, what does all this mean? Let's go through it. Okay, while it's stabilising, let's look at some of these readings we got here. Now, let's not get worried about the micrograms per cubic meter and all that sort of stuff. Let me just explain what we got. We got temperature here, which is obviously the ambient temperature in the workshop, 14.8. It's a bit nippy. RH, which is the relative humidity. That's basically how damp it is in the workshop. Then AQI, which is a air quality index. Now this is a general overall reading of the air quality. Okay, so you'll sometimes hear AQI referred to. Right, you don't need to worry about any of that. These are what we're interested in. Okay, we got PM 2.5, PM 1 and PM 10. Okay, and then down the bottom it gives you a quick indication of how good the air quality is. Right, what does this PM 2.5 mean? I'll explain. Right, so now we're back at school. I don't know if you remember this, but I'm going to get rid of it. Right, so PM. What does PM stand for? PM stands for particulate material or particulate matter. Okay, and it's basically how much stuff is floating around in the air, and that stuff is the stuff you're breathing in. Okay, which you don't want to breathe in. PM, yeah, particulate matter. What we got, PM is 10, PM 10. Okay, and this is the bigger stuff. Okay, this is the stuff you can see, you can taste, it gets in your eyes and your nose. Okay, and your body has a natural defense against this. Okay, because it gives you a sore throat, it makes your eyes stream. Okay, so your body says there's something in the air we don't like, and then you can do something about it. You can leave the room or you can put on a mask. Okay, so PM10 is bigger dust. That's the big stuff. I'm sure it's more technical than that, but this is dust. Okay, this is the big stuff. Now PM 2.5 is the fine particles. Now these are not so easily detected by humans, okay? And what they do is the very small particles, which are 2.5 microns, okay, so that's teeny tiny, okay, 2.5 microns, they'll go into your lungs, you'll breathe them in, but you won't know you're breathing them in, okay, because they're not going to make you cough, they're not going to make your eyes stream, okay, but you breathe them in and they'll stick in your lungs, and obviously you can't get them out of your lungs, okay. So anything 2.5 microns and smaller is really bad, okay. So this is fine particles. Okay, and then finally PM1.0. Obviously these are only 1 micron big. Now these are really small, okay, so it's ultra fine particles. Now what these do are even worse than PM2.5, because these can actually get into your bloodstream, okay. You don't know anything about it, you're breathing them in, they go through your lungs into your bloodstream, and then they can affect other organs in your body, okay. So PM1, really bad. PM2.5, very bad. And PM10, that's what the dust particles are all about. Let's do some quick experiments and see how bad the air quality is in the workshop. Right, so this is currently mounted in the middle of the workshop. I've not done any work out here for the last week, and we're on 2.5, we're on 26. Now, looking at our quick chart, which comes in these extensive instructions, PM 2.5 concentration, 0 to 50 is good, okay? 50 to 100 moderate, 100 to 150 lightly polluted, 150 to 200 moderately polluted, 200 to 300 heavily polluted, 300 plus severely polluted, okay? So really we want to keep it below 100, I suppose. So I suppose our maximum score is going to be 100, okay? Anything above that we don't like, okay? Do you like my pencils? Thanks to the workshop. Right, okay, so you can see here we've got a reading about 24 at the moment. This is in the workshop. Haven't done anything for the last few days, so this should be, all the dust should have settled. Okay, but we've still got 27 of the bigger particles, the PM10, the bigger particles. On the side here, the other button I showed you, okay, if I quickly push it, what it does, it brings up a breakdown of all of the levels, okay? But what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the quick referencey numbers here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly get my airline out from the compressor, which is behind, and I'm just going to blow some dust around and see how much pollution can be generated just by using an airline. Okay, so that's not too bad. I mean, I did tidy up a little while ago, so there's very little dust floating around at the moment. Still on 26, this is still good. Okay, but you can see that the bigger particles, the PM10, this is crept up to 33, 34, 35. Okay, but this is still acceptable. Okay, it's not saying you shouldn't wear a mask, but it's still acceptable at the moment. It's not too bad. Right, let's do another test. Okay, so the first little test I'm going to do is using the bandsaw. I'm going to chop some pieces off of this piece of wood. Okay, it's just a normal piece of pine. As you can see at the moment, we're on 29 for 2.5 and 31 for the larger particles. Okay, I'm expecting if I use the bandsaw, it's going to create quite large particles. So I'm just going to quickly run this through the bandsaw and we'll keep an eye on this. Okay, so it's on 30 at the moment. Okay, we just let that stabilise for a second. Now I wouldn't expect the bandsaw to be too bad as far as generating a lot of dust, because most of it is quite big chippings. Okay, we can see this just crept up to 36, so that's still well within limits, not too bad. Right, so for this next little experiment, all I'm going to do is I'm going to first chop a small piece of pine on my table saw sled, and then I'm going to chop some MDF. Now I'm probably going to put a mask on for this because it's MDF. And all I'm going to do is make a series of cuts. I've got a monitor here next to where I am, so it's not too far away from what I would be breathing in. Okay, let's make some cuts. Okay, we'll just let that stabilise for a moment. Okay, what have we got? Right, so that's gone up a little bit. So 2.5 has gone up to 33, or 34 even. 10 has gone up to 48. Okay, so we can see that's bigger particles. And 1 has gone up to 18. Okay, so that's an increase in all of those. Right, now we're going to wait for the dust to settle a little bit and then we're going to cut the MDF. Okay, so that's quite interesting. I've left it for a few seconds while I've been messing around and it's gone up even more. It's just started to drop again now, but this went up to like 52. Okay, so we can change that to 52. And this one has now gone up to 52 as well. Okay, so the bigger particles have started to settle. So we had 48, it's now gone up to 52. So that means that the particles are airborne, but they're gradually falling down onto the sensor. Okay, and the very small particles have stayed about the same. Okay, right. So I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer for this to settle and then we cut the MDF. Right, so just from those few cuts on that piece of pine, I've had to wait a quarter of an hour with my workshop extractor, like the air purifier going, just to get the readings back down to what they were previously. So that means for at least a quarter of an hour, those particles are floating around in the air and I was breathing them in. Okay, right, let's finally get around to doing the MDF. Right, don't forget, MDF, wear one of these, otherwise you're stupid. Okay, even with my mask on, I can taste that. Right, let's let that stabilise and then we'll have a look at our horrifying readings. Right, so it's been stabilising for about a minute or so. You can see, obviously, this has gone up to 52 and it's gone yellow. Now looking at a little bar on the bottom, yellow means it's a moderate pollution, okay? And you can see most of it is the PM10. Okay, so slightly larger particles. So these are all airborne now, and this has gone up to 78. Okay, I'm going to leave it for another couple of minutes and see how bad that gets. And the other one, obviously the PM1, has gone up from, I think it was 18 up to 25, 26. Okay, let's let that stabilise and we'll see what's still floating around in the air. So that's not too bad, but it does mean there's a lot of particles floating around that you can't really see and they're getting stuck in my lungs. Right, I'm going to turn the extractor back on and try and clear the air again. Right, so the extractor I've got is this little fella up here. Okay, it's not ideal. I'd much prefer to have something like a record power or an Axminster type of proper extractor, like one of these. Okay, but this one, I got it fairly cheap. But it's got a carbon filter, which is not ideal for the workshop. I need something that's a bit more workshop orientated. Carbon filter is okay for smells, but not so good for dust. Okay, so I'm going to turn this on and then clear the air. Time for a cup of tea. And now, the worst offender is sanding. We all know this, when you've been sanding, you can't help but feel a bit dusty and coffee and spluttery. Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of sanding and we're going to watch this. Now this is with no extraction and we'll just see how we get on with this. Okay, that's a fantastic pencil. Look at that, Paisley Workshop. Right, let's start sanding. Right, well I think that says it all. Looking at the meter, you can't even see the bloody numbers because there's so much dust stuck to the screen. Let's wipe that off and see what we got. Now that was only a couple of seconds of sanding. Okay. Right, and I don't know if you saw, but that actually went into the red. Okay, so, oh God. Right, let's write some readings down and then let it stabilise. So at the moment we've got 256, 300 and whatever that says, because I can't see because it's too dusty. 322 and 68. Right, so all of these went into the red. Okay, and that's sanding. Yeah, that's not very good, is it? Okay, so I've now finished the sanding without any extraction. Now, what I've done is I've left my extractor on for quite a while and I've cleared the air and I'm back down to my base level. What I'm going to do for completeness, now I've got my sander hooked up to my shop vac. Okay, so this is just a simple shop vac, and I want to see how much difference it makes if I sand for exactly the same amount of time and see how much of an improvement it is in the amount of dust I create. Right, let's start some sanding. Right, so finished now sanding with the extractor turned on. It's a bit unfortunate because my SD card filled up on my phone here, but you could see from the readings that it hardly made any difference at all to the amount of dust that was in the air. So this is what you need to do if you're sanding. Use an extractor because it really does help. Right, so there's just one more thing I want to check, and that is, yes, we've been good. We've used our extractor, we've done our sanding, but now we've got to empty our shop vac. Okay, so our little meter here is now back to normal readings, and let's see how bad it gets. Okay, we've gone up to 109, 157, so this is the larger particles have gone up to, or we're still climbing, 156, and that's in the red. That's really bad. So this is bad, this is really bad. Okay, and the very small particles have gone up to 35. So don't forget when you're emptying your shop vac that you're going to create a lot of nasty dust. You know this already because it always makes you cough. I'm going to let this dust settle and then that'll be it. Right, well that's about it. Thank you very much for staying until the end of the video, if you did. So that was just a quick look at this particular air quality meter. There are obviously loads of different ones available on the internet. As I say, this one was bought from Amazon. It cost about 50 quid. I got it as a Christmas present, but I'm glad I got it. I think I probably would have spent that much money on one anyway. So I shall leave this up in the workshop now to monitor the air quality when I'm doing any work out here. What have we learned? We've learned that the bandsaw is probably less of an offender. Table saw more so. There's a difference obviously between pine and things like MDF because obviously the fibres are a lot smaller. So when you cut them they get airborne. But the worst offender is sanding. So if you're doing any sanding, make sure you use dust extraction if you can. If not, make sure you're well ventilated. I know this all sounds a bit health and safety, but at the end of the day, you've only got one set of lungs. We all want to carry on doing woodwork. The longer we can carry on, the better. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope this was of some use, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. The air quality meter, who was it by? I can't remember who made it now. Absolutely nothing because I haven't turned it on. Particular let's not worry about that. Okay, so we've got, check is, are we recording? Yes, we are. Till the end of the video. Just got a text message.